Authorities have assured South Africans that they are ready to deal with the festive rush, but are unions convinced that the police have enough resources to fight crime during this period? To discuss this, I'm now joined by Lesiba Thobakgale, who is the spokesperson of the police union SAPU. Ntate Thobakgale, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. Now, the festive season is upon us. What types of crimes are we mostly to see during this period, and how does it typically strain the police resources?
Thank you for having us, and greetings to your viewers. Indeed, we know that during the festive season rush, criminals, they happen to be opportunistic. As we have seen, the modus operandi that has been used previously, where the criminals would kidnap some of the citizens and then they make them to open up their cell phones in order for them to be able to transfer money. And at that time, whilst they are holding one hostage, then they would go and withdraw those monies. That is one of the crimes that we have seen, as a modus operandi that was used. And further to that, we know that during the festive season rush, there is also cash in transits that indeed would take place. But we must appreciate that during this season, as the festive has already started, we haven't seen quite an increase when it comes to the cash in transit heists. That on its own, it really means that the efforts that are being made by the police and actually by the safety and security sector, the collaboration of SAPs, the collaboration of private security, the collaboration of all the stakeholders within the law enforcement fraternity are really making efforts in order to make sure that those types of crime are really being dealt with. All we are saying is that we need to watch out. We just want to sensitize the members of the society to say during this period, we must just stay alert and also make sure that we are also, not finding ourselves being prone to criminals taking advantage of the members of society as well. But we must also appreciate the efforts. As we can, one can mention that the visibility, you can see there's a lot of roadblocks that are there. The trainees who just graduated last week, they are out there on the streets. The police are making efforts. And also, we must also acknowledge that border management authorities also assisting us in this season when we are looking at them taking care of border management, meaning that the police are then able to focus on the classical policing, which is quite important in reducing crime within the country, whilst border management authority, they are busy managing the borders.
So how confident are you as SAPU in SAPS's festive season preparedness plan, and what specific aspects of that plan gives you confidence or concern?
We are quite confident with the issue of visibility. Remember, the first goal in dealing with crime is prevention. Crime needs to be prevented. If you are able to make sure that whatever plan that you have, it is of preventing crime, rather than a plan that would be reactive in nature, and then thereafter crimes are, they occur, then you become reactive. You have to start to investigate. So the efforts that we are seeing, everywhere we see quite a lot of visibility, and that on its own, it really stands as a deterrent. So we must indeed appreciate and also commend the police to say they are indeed getting it right within the challenges that are there. There's budgetary challenges, as we know, the austerity policy that has been imposed by government by cutting even the budget of organizations that deals with safety and security, like SAPS in this regard, and even PMA, and also all those other within the very same safety and security sector. So if indeed the increased visibility that we are seeing, which we are seeing with the collaboration, which also include private security, because private security is also playing a very critical role, because they happen to have even more resources. They happen to be even in most of the areas. So them collaborating with the law enforcement, either being with the members of SAPS, the Metro Police, Traffic Police, and everyone that deals with the issues of crime, that on its own, the more we are holding hands, the more we are collaborating, that is indeed assisting. So we have confidence in the plan, indeed, that is being executed since this very same festive season that we are seeing.
You speak of collaboration and the holding of hands. How involved has your union been in developing the SAPS festive season preparedness plans, and are there mechanisms in terms of feedback from policing unions?
No, definitely we are a stakeholder. We do play a critical role, but we don't interfere clearly in the operational duties that the National Commissioner and his management has. For us, is just to make sure that there is a plan that is in place, and that plan that is in place, it is a plan that indeed we have confidence in it, in their execution. I mean, we have the new police ministry who indeed we have confidence in, and we have seen the strides that him and his two deputies has been making when it comes to the issue of fighting crime. And Katlego, you could reflect clearly with the last quarter crime statistics that were released, indeed, which are suggesting to us that crime is being reduced in this country. So which means that indeed we still need to make sure that whatever efforts that are being made are indeed leading us to the right direction, so that ultimately we could be able to eradicate crime. But unfortunately, we still have a challenge that we are still faced with, or that SAPS is still faced with as we speak, or the law enforcement fraternity. As we know that last weekend in KwaZulu-Natal, around Hammarsdale, there were two police officers who were murdered by a criminal whom has been terrorizing the members of the community. And as we are speaking, one of them is being buried tomorrow. The other one has been buried. So those are some of the challenges that we are still finding ourselves being faced with. But we are saying that government has to play its part when it comes to those issues. And management of the SAPS needs to be given even more resources, especially when it comes to the issue of the budget, so that they could be able indeed to eradicate, to fight, and also ultimately eradicate the high levels of crime we are seeing in this country.
So you make mention of the inroads that SAPS has made over the last couple of months. I mean, 15,000 suspects last week nationally having been arrested within the Tshwane area. Has the ongoing Operation Shanela sort of helped in the contribution of the critical work that now should impact in terms of what needs to be done during the festive season?
Indeed, Shanela, if you could look at the successes, and some of them is what you have mentioned, Katlego. Indeed, those operations, they've assisted, and it went across all provinces. And there has been different types of operations that have been held. And in those operations, we see a number of even the wanted suspects being arrested. Those indeed who thought that they have evaded the law, they got to be traced, and then through those operations to get to be rearrested or to be arrested if a need was at that time. And also, we have also looked at the numbers of illegal firearms that indeed were taken away from our streets, that were taken from the hands of hardened criminals whom would not hesitate to kill police officers, who would not hesitate to terrorize the members of the society. As we know that a firearm, it is one of those weapons that are quite easy for one to use in the commission of crime. And if we have illegal firearms being taken away from those hardened criminals and them also being arrested, it really means that the lives of the citizenry in this country are being saved. So those efforts, we have seen them being positive. And we must say that as the South African Policing Union, SAPU, we welcome all efforts that really seek to go and make sure that we are eradicating the issue of crime. And the issue of collaboration, we strongly believe in it, to say that the police on their own, they will not be able to do it, but we need to collaborate as well, as much as, except involving even other stakeholders. The community, it is the biggest stakeholder that is quite important, where now through Community Policing Forum, we need to be organized so that within our communities, there wouldn't be anything that happens there without having the ears or the eyes where the police would know what is really happening. And jointly, if we are holding hands and we are collaborating, we would be able to fight against this one enemy that we are faced with, which is crime, and be able to win against it.
So, I mean, you speak a lot about collaboration and holding hands, and I can believe that it's in order to extend whatever resources each stakeholder would have. I mean, we heard earlier on the Western Cape Commissioner saying there's additional boots on the ground, and those resources being put there really does assist. And you speak of the private security companies that come in with their own resources. But how do resource constraints within SAPS affect the morale and the effectiveness of your members, especially during this festive season? And what support measures are in place for officers that are on the ground?
I mean, definitely, if indeed the issues of the budget, it's really not resolved, we really, National Treasury does not indeed look on the issue of cutting the budget of SAPS. Definitely, the resources that are there within the South African Police Services, they will continue to be constrained. And we are saying that even during this period, indeed, whatever resources that are there, they get to be mobilized. As we know, we have seen a number of operations and also the deployments that have been made, where you will find that members will be deployed. Some will be deployed within those provinces or within those areas, which indeed have those high levels of crime. And with those little resources that are there, we continue to see the police indeed trying their level best to make sure that they do what needs to be done. But we don't want to see the very same situation happening time and again, that we still continue to talk about the constraints when it comes to the issues of resources. South African Police Services, or the law enforcement fraternity, even when it comes to the Border Management Authority, we must appreciate the efforts that were made at Limpopo border, where we saw the issues of the drones that were displayed there by the Minister of Home Affairs, really showing us that indeed there are efforts that are being made in acquiring the fourth industrial revolution resources that would be able to assist in policing the borders thereof. Those are some of the innovations that we need to look at, but those innovations, you will not be able to have them if you continue to still have the issues of the budget constraints. Government indeed needs to really make sure that this status quo changes, so that we don't have to be talking about the vehicles that may be parked in a specific SAPS garage and not having tires, or not waiting for a long time for them to be fixed and to go back on the roads. All of those issues, indeed, in most cases, they really lay on the issues of budgetary constraints. SAPS should not be talking about budget constraints. We need to make sure that if indeed we are taking the issue of crime, then that will assist us in making sure that even foreign investment would come into the country, knowing that the safety and security in the country is quite guaranteed.
Of course, and South Africans are looking forward to a very safe festive season and beyond. And Ntate Thobakgale, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time. That was Lesiba Thobakgale, who's the spokesperson of the police union, SAPU. Well, let's go for another, well, rather, before we go for a quick break, let's take a look at newsmaking headlines when we return.